Find your favorite programs online at jupiterbroadcasting.com.
This episode of the Linux Action Show brought to you in part by GoDaddy.com. Use the promo code Linux and save yourself some cash. And of course, from donations of people that are, it's like people get donated, you know? And it's free. It's free. It's tax exempt.
No, it's not.
No, when you donate people, it is. It's
donate people.
Right.
But
You
not when you donate
can't,
to us.
Chris, you can't put a worth on person.
This week on the Linux Action Show, we've got our hands on the latest edition of WebOS, and we go in depth. Then find out why VirtualBox has pulled ahead of the pack and why your Linux box uses so much power. Oh, this week on the Linux Action Show. And welcome to Season 17, Episode 6 of the Linux Action Show. My name is Brian, that guy is Chris. Hold on a second. I want to make a point.
All right.
We have been doing this show for over 5 years now. In fact, our birthday was in June something or other. You can check Wikipedia. Wikipedia knows I don't.
Oh, does it?
Wikipedia totally knows.
I'll check while you talk.
Yeah, check while I talk. Back in like April and May, Chris and I were like, man, our 5th birthday of this show is
Pretty
coming up.
awesome.
We should do something. We should talk about it. We should make a big episode about it. And then we came and went, and
We kinda forgot about it.
We didn't do anything.
We kind of forgot about it.
We did nothing for
Our birthday.
our birthday. But we've been out for over 5 years now. Over 5 years of the Linux Action Show. That is crazy.
Says
That is
here,
insane.
Says here that it was August 2nd. Oh, no, that was Computer Action Show.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah, the Linux Action Show.
there's several. There's two
Just search for
Wikipedia
Linux Action
pages.
Show.
Linux
One for Jupiter Broadcasting.
Action
one for-
Show.
there you
Yeah,
go.
I don't know. Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Oh,
There
I
we
found
go.
it, Brian. Nope, that's not it.
Where'd the Linux Action Show thing? There you go.
I think we get redirected. I think they condensed it down to one page.
Oh, no. They
I think
got rid of the actual Linux
the
Action Show
Wikipedia
Wikipedia
people.
page?
Well, you know the people.
God damn Wikipedia. Man, we used to have so many kick-ass Wikipedia pages, and they got rid of all of them because they're like, these guys are not
Wait,
important.
Hold on, we're getting way off track.
Hold on a
I haven't
second.
even done my
no,
Runs Linux
No,
yet.
you can do it in a minute. So here's
This is a mess.
Here's the crazy thing. Chris,
All right.
do you have a Wikipedia page?
I don't know.
No.
I've never checked.
You don't.
I don't care.
I don't either.
All right.
But here's the thing. We should.
Okay.
Here's the thing. A lot of our, when we were doing Beer is Tasty,
Yeah.
we made internet history.
Sure. Internet.
That show made internet history, right?
Yeah.
We had droves of people. We're like, man, we just got to put information that is being supplied by this show
Sure,
up
because
on
it's about
Wikipedia.
beer. That's about beer, man.
They deleted everything. They're like, you know what? This is not real. We just delete everything. We'll just delete it all.
I'm drinking
Ridiculous.
a beer, so maybe now. Although the good news is that our community has been building a Wikia site for us,
Which is way better.
they have a bunch of information over there. So you could probably
I believe
find it over
it's
there.
June 6th or June 16th.
That sounds pretty good, man.
I think it was with a 6 in it. But anyway, 5 years, rock star, powerful,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
Love that stuff.
Probably the most off the tracks we've ever gone in the intro.
So
in
I
5
want
years.
to thank everyone though for hanging out with us for the last 5 years. It's been a rock and rollicking good time.
Absolutely.
And this is the last episode.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right, what runs
Here
Linux?
we go. Well, of course, Brian, it's fitting for this week's episode. The HP TouchPad runs Linux. Of course, it runs WebOS, and WebOS is based on Linux. But we've never actually done the TouchPad as it runs Linux. And with today's episode, all about WebOS, I thought it would be appropriate.
That's rocking.
So the HP TouchPad, of course, as you know,
It's a tablet.
it's getting mixed reviews. It's getting basically people are saying it's got a good start, have some qualms with the hardware, those kinds of things. But it's a 9.7-inch HP tablet. It's got a dual-core 1.2 gigahertz Qualcomm processor. It's also
Qualcomm.
comes in there, or I'm sorry, I think it's actually not a Qualcomm, but it's a Hummingbird. It's got 16 gigs of storage for $499. That's US dollars, and 32 gigs of storage for $599.
That's good.
And ships with the latest WebOS, which is pretty neat.
That's great.
I really kind of want one.
Yeah, I do too. We'll talk about that when we talk about WebOS.
Yeah, all right,
a little
okay,
later in
all
the
right.
show.
Okay.
That's pretty rocking.
I kind of want one now. before we go on, we've got a couple of things to talk about today.
Okay, lay it on me.
We actually got a pretty big show.
We got a really big
I'm
show.
pretty excited about today's show.
We got to jam through this show. We cannot have derailment, Chris.
No, we can't have,
we
like,
can't
in the
start
first
off
10
the
seconds,
show and start talking about other crap.
No.
We got to do this show. We got to do it right.
I think this thing's going to blow. If this mic stand blows, watch your eyes, because there's a spring that'll come out of this thing and it wants to decap it.
It's no big deal.
Okay. So, first, before we go, B-Man, I want to give a quick plug for the new show, TechSnap. I had a fun thing happen in Friday's episode that came out, episode 12.
Yeah.
We were talking about this way to find out if your passwords have leaked online, and I didn't know. And so I ran my thing, and I put my Jupiter Broadcasting email in there, and it says, no passwords leaked. I'm like, awesome.
Perfect.
So then Alan's like, why don't you put your Gmail in there? I'm like, all right, we're doing the show. I put my Gmail in there. It's boom, hacked. I find out right there live on the show that my account's been leaked online. So that's a fun episode. You guys, people can go check that out if you want to see me freak out about that. Yeah.
You really?
Yeah.
Your Gmail?
Yeah.
I had to check mine.
Yeah, I know.
I haven't
right?
checked.
Yeah. So that was kind of a funny moment in the
Crap.
show. But that's actually not what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to mention our buddies over at the GoDaddy.com, Brian.
It's interesting because GoDaddy.com does two things very interesting. One, registers domain names. Two,
That's true.
hosts those domain
Yeah.
names on Linux-powered servers.
They probably do some other things like email hosting and stuff like that.
They may. But what I want to
we just
talk
gotta
about is
focus
those
on.
laser focus in. And you can do those things while watching Danica Patrick look at you and make eyes at you.
In fact, to make things go down a little smooth, like a sugar with that medicine, we have two codes for you. Code
Two.
Linux, that'll save you 10%
Yeah.
at checkout on just about darn near anything that they offer. Code Linux 20% saved on hosting right there. And here's a little story, Brian.
And dude, the Linux shared hosting is already so cheap.
And here's
I
why
save
you
so
might
much
want to
money on
do
that.
it. Is check this out. Alexa has a story here about GoDaddy is sending their support professionals who do the support for Linux hosting. They're having their support professionals go over to the Linux Professional Institute and get the LPI certification.
That's so cool.
That's a great way to go, and it really shows you that GoDaddy is serious about not just supporting Linux, but this is an obvious sign that they're continuing to invest in Linux by training up their support team and spending money on that.
And here's the thing. In case you were wondering, so they're shared hosting, right? Come on, it's shared hosting. It's like, oh, shared hosting. I want a full dedicated box. I'm running my blog, london.com, off of a Linux shared hosting server over there. And that blog gets some traffic sometimes.
Sometimes you get some traffic on that thing.
It spikes crazy high every now and then. And you know what?
They're just cool with it?
Not a blip, not a burp, not a fartle, not a churtle. It rock and rolls the whole
Brian,
time.
They got to be able to scale to the metric size.
And here's the
of Danica.
messed up thing. I'm spending less per year for that Linux shared host than I spent per month for a dedicated box previously.
I know.
And the dedicated
crazy.
box I had previously was over at Server Beach, and it was a good price on it.
Yeah.
But I am saving.
Yeah.
It's literally less than 1/12 the price.
It is pretty nuts, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Yeah. There you go.
Crazy.
So thanks to GoDaddy. Now we have got two good picks in an
And
Android
unlimited
pick.
bandwidth.
Yeah.
Unlimited.
That is really nice, especially for
And
those.
I have been pushing that to the max.
Well, and the thing is like all the other methods when you end up having where they have like you can have this kind of bandwidth. What that really means is if you have a really really great day, you're gonna get screwed.
Totally screwed.
Yeah. So you got to watch for that. So unlimited bandwidth is
Rock
always
and
nice.
roll. Anyway,
Now,
Android pick.
my Android pick this week is a tip of the hat to the folks over at Ubuntu. They have released the Ubuntu One Files app for Android, and of course it's free. If you're an Ubuntu One user,
Yes.
this lets you get your Ubuntu One files on the go.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really is. It is really nice of Canonical to offer this. Now, it's been out for iOS for a little while, made by another development shop. Now, this one's here, and it looks like a truly great app. Now,
Is this one official? Is this from Canonical?
Yeah, yep.
That's way cool.
And I haven't used it myself because I haven't recently been using Ubuntu One, but I really like the UI on this. It actually looks a little cleaner than let's say the competitor they might have is Dropbox there. So link to that in the show notes, and if you're watching, you can probably just scan that QR code and get it right now, and then go download it.
And one of the nice things is Ubuntu One, as far as I can tell, doesn't have that whole term of service thing with that going on. What's going on with Dropbox right now, where Dropbox automatically owns everything that's in your Dropbox account.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I should read.
That
through
made me a little nervous.
I should read through the Ubuntu One.
If you guys, we won't talk about the Linux Action Show, but go Google or Bing or Yahoo
The
or
Dropbox stuff.
Lycos or Metacrawler or Alta Vista or whatever.
DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGo is what I'm using.
Yeah.
But go search for that, find out about it, and then you'll know what I'm talking about.
All right, B-Man, let's do your Linux pick this week.
Linux pick. All right. So we've had a couple of game picks over since we started this, but I want to do one more. It's not technically a game pick, but it's really for games. And it's DOSbox.
Buddy.
Now you'd be like, so here's the thing. I felt a little weird picking a Linux pick that was
For running
DOSbox.
DOS.
The whole point of DOSbox is to be able to run DOS.
Sure, I
It is
gotcha.
a fully emulated. Basically, it's like QEMU or VMware or VirtualBox, except it's very small. It's very lightweight.
Very
and it's
lightweight.
very focused on running a minimal DOS installation for playing DOS games.
Yeah.
That's the point of it. Now, why is this great? On Linux, really, come on, we do have a lack of games. We do. We just do. We don't have as many games as the Windows guys do. Well, we don't even have as many games as the Mac people do for the most part. You know, so
Yeah.
we do have a lack of games.
But you know what else?
The thing
You know what else is there's all these old catalog of games that will just never be reported to Linux.
There you go. So like I've been over at Good Old Games. So GOG.com.
I
I've been
love
over there.
Good Old Games.
I've been over there a ton lately. You can buy, and here's the great part, DRM free games. Games with no copy protection, no digital restrictions at all placed on them, and you can buy games for like $5, $3, etc. And you can buy like some serious classics. I mean, you can go, there's Myst right over there. There's tons of stuff you can buy. And what they have over at GOG.com is they have like wish lists, basically. They have like little lists that people can put together.
If anybody could
There
get us
are
in touch
lists.
with GOG, we would love to have these guys sponsors because I
Seriously,
love
they're,
this.
They're the
site.
best thing ever. And there's a list on there of games that work that are in DOSbox.
Yeah.
So you know that the games you're buying are going to work in DOSbox under Linux if you buy them. There's also a list of games that work under Wine. So you know that if you pick up some of these Windows games, you know they're going to work under Linux under Wine. Really, really great. So back to DOSbox. DOSbox is awesome. The cool thing is you can play a lot of these old games, and I know they're old, but let's be honest, some of these old games are way cooler than anything that's new coming out. Come on. Master Variant 2 rocks the Casbah. Alpha Centauri is
I
awesome.
wanted to get their retro on too, and just,
It's so retro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
And
DOSbox.
you put a game in there, you play a game. The cool thing is all your saves are in there, all your games are in there.
Totally portable too, right?
If you blow everything away, all I do is I have a DOSbox folder in my home folder, and I just copy that around with me wherever I go. I've got all my games, all my save states, everything with me all the time. It's awesome.
That's
It's
really cool, man.
awesome.
So that's DOSbox.
That's DOSbox. So
And
it's
I know
been
you've
around
used
forever.
this one extensionally or a lot. Yeah.
I almost every day. I
Yeah.
love DOSbox. It's fantastic. You know, it's
Oh, look at this. And DOSbox on their site also has a great rating system that tells you
Yeah.
what games are known to work well or not.
and it's a massive list.
That's a really massive. Yeah,
You're scrolling way down, and you're still in the A's, my friend.
yeah,
So
yeah.
DOSbox is great. Big thanks to those guys for running that project, because honestly, it lets me play some of my favorite games from back in the late 80s to, say, early to mid 90s. And honestly, a lot of those games are way
know
better
what you
than
mean.
anything we've got nowadays. So rock
Stay
and
tuned
roll.
for a future new episode of Jupiter at Night, because I think we're going to get, I think maybe next week's episode
We'll dive into that.
We'll dive
Yeah.
into the old retro
Anyway,
gaming topic.
Runs great on every flavor of
Hey,
Linux.
I want to say, thanks to Majo, he's keeping a list over in Jupiter Colony of all your Linux picks, too.
Yeah, it's nice. Over
so
in the forum
if
there.
you're looking for a list of all the picks Brian's done on the show, go over to Jupiter Colony. Also in the show notes, link to that, but as well, a link to all of my Android picks so far.
Bonus.
So thanks to Majo for keeping both of those lists going. That's really awesome.
Sweet.
All right, B-Man, let's do the news.
Okay. What's new in the news this week?
Oh, all right, Brian.
Gosh, that was good.
The first story
That was the best one in a long time.
on the news docket for
I'm
this
so happy about that right now.
the Phoronix guys, you know, the guys that do like the benchmarking stuff and talk
Yeah.
about the video cards all the
Yeah.
time. Anyways, sometimes I've busted their balls a little bit for sometimes running with maybe like the Wine story, or I'm sorry, the Steam stories,
Oh,
saying
yeah.
Steam absolutely is going to come to Linux, and I was
And they
kinda
don't really
like,
have any reason to actually
yeah.
think that.
Well,
yeah.
they had some screenshots, but
Yeah, they didn't really.
so
They had a website that was mocked up.
But they have a really great testing suite that you can use, and they've recently added metrics to monitor
Yeah.
power consumption by Linux. And doing this, they've actually discovered some regressions in recent Linux kernels, in a couple actually, that are leading to poor performance in power management. But people didn't really quite know why this was happening. Why is this sucking under Ubuntu Natty?
Right.
It turns out that it actually might be a bug in the ASPM, that's the Active State Power Management Code, that manages the power state for your PCI Express devices. A lot of stuff in any modern computer sits on the PCI Express bus. Your video card does, your network card probably does, things like that. And the computer's operating system can actively manage the state they're in, off, low power, or high power. And I guess this code is not working correctly, and so it's causing excessive power usage. Now, we're not talking like anything that's just outside of this world, but
Well, but
Phronix ran through and said, Phronix ran through and said, if you actually add it up over time, you're going to actually have so much of a noticeable power hit
Look at that.
you might actually consider not running Natty. Now, that might be going a little far, but you do wonder, the other thing I think people need to take into consideration with all of these new desktops is their desktop compositing runs that GPU a little harder, which is a pretty power-hungry little mofo. You combine that with some power regressions, and now all of a sudden, with your new Unity desktop that uses 3D compositing and has this power regression issue, now you're ending up with this system that's really kind of sucking for portable devices.
Yeah.
But the Phronix guys, props for them for tracking it down.
The cool bit, the more we track it down, the more likely it is to get fixed.
Yeah,
and that's bonusy right there.
And I wanted to mention it because in the past I've been a little rough, and I think they've done some good investigative journalism here. So it's
no, this is solid.
And
that's good stuff.
It's not so much, I guess, necessarily. And I want to say thanks to Shane for mentioning in the chat room. It's not so much necessarily. It could be that it's not a bug in the code in the kernel. It could be that it's buggy BIOSes in machines.
Yeah, it could be.
But the solution will probably be code in the kernel to handle that. So it's either way, it's going to involve some code changes on Linux's side to compensate for, once again, here we are, it's freaking 2011, and we're still struggling with the freaking BIOS. You know what I mean? It's unbelievable. But
well, I mean, we're always going to struggle with it. I mean, because the BIOS is a piece of the system. We're always going to be modifying it. We're always going to be struggling with it. That's fine.
True.
It's not like we're running all this on a 286 with an EGA monitor that's just been, not a moving target for 30 years.
Chat room says you could always do something like maybe a whitelisting or blacklisting kind of thing, so that way you could say, this hardware is known bad, so we're not going to do it, something like that. But you still end up kind of in a lose-lose situation as the end user.
Yeah, plus, anytime we come out and say, you know what, this piece of hardware doesn't run well on Linux, we get a lot of flack for that, and everyone around the world goes, what? Linux doesn't work good with hardware? And so we got to do our best to work well on a wide variety of hardware. And Linux runs on so many platforms,
and really,
might as well.
When you take a new distro and you load it up and it, it detects all the hardware and it gets everything going, and you show somebody that who's traditionally, like I've done this, I'll go into a shop as a contractor, and I'll show one of their help desk guys who's just reloaded Windows boxes for his entire career at a live CD, and he's just blown away by not
everything
having to fight with drivers. Yeah,
it's a great win. So we might as well do the best we can.
I wanted to give a mention because I've heard from some of you out there, and so I went ahead and threw this in the news docket. A new version of VirtualBox is out, which solves some of the issues that some of you running GNOME 3 have written and said you're having issues with it.
Big time.
New VirtualBox is out. Go grab it. Also, if you run GNOME 3 on the Mac desktop, I guess a lot of people are having a virtual machine on a Mac host with GNOME 3 as the virtual desktop. I guess people are having all kinds of issues. I don't know.
All kinds of trouble.
And that's been fixed in VirtualBox.
And even under Linux, I just want to say, like the previous couple of releases of VirtualBox were a little buggy for me. I just kept hitting a couple of little weird snags. This one, though, so far has been really solid the last few days. I really recommend upgrading if you're using VirtualBox at all.
Under Linux, there's a nice little memory bug fix that was taking more memory than it should have.
Yeah.
And that might have been what you're running up against. I will say this. 2 years ago, I thought, honestly, really, before Oracle bought VirtualBox even, so not even that long ago, VirtualBox was like the third guy for me.
Yeah, it was.
There was maybe the second guy. There was VMware, maybe Parallels, maybe Zen, and then VirtualBox. But if you look at this change list, VirtualBox is beating every other guy. They already have support in here for OS X Lion.
Yeah.
For Lion. It's not even out.
Yeah.
And they're working on their GNOME 3 support. How much do you want to bet
they're doing great
that if you look at VMware's bug tracker database for their VMware...
There's tons of bugs, I'm sure.
How much do you want to bet better GNOME 3 support is not too high on that list?
Probably
and here's
not.
a VirtualBox with version 4010 with improved GNOME 3 support.
And what's really nice, just
there.
kind of just to tag on to this, so VirtualBox 4.1 is in beta right now. So if you want to kind of do the cutting edge, you can check that out. I don't really recommend it for production systems because, I mean, come on. You don't want to run a VM that's kind of beta-y.
Yeah,
but here's the cool bit. They got, they're adding in support for up to 1 terabyte of RAM.
Oh, for a really?
Yeah, in the guess, which is ridiculous.
Seriously.
And they're making it so you can do proper cloning of your virtual machines.
That'd be one
which
big
is
host.
One of the big things that I like about VMware that annoys me that I don't have in VirtualBox, and they're adding into VirtualBox in 4.1. So at that point,
the B-Man and I in different scenarios have used VirtualBox Headless Edition in production, and the cloning aspect is probably the number one thing that I use in VMware for a fast deployment.
Yeah,
you know,
if I could have cloning right now, I would love it. I mean, VirtualBox would be hands down. That would be it. I wouldn't even consider everything else.
Yeah.
And now that it's coming in 4.1, which if you follow VirtualBox's releases, can't be that far out. Their releases come pretty fast and furious.
I'm super happy to see that since Oracle picked them up,
it's still going.
It seems to be the pace is just kept on moving on.
It's kept on going.
Yeah.
It's great.
Let's talk about something that I got tweeted a few times this week. People seem to be a little upset about, B-Man.
Yeah.
You know what?
It's cute.
I want to say thanks to people who've been sending me story suggestions because honestly, sometimes I'll kick a few things off the news docket here if I get a better one from from Twitter or wherever you want to do it, Buzz, whatever, email. Well, no, probably
not email. Not email. I'm probably not going to read it.
So Synaptic, the well-known apt GUI management tool for managing software installations and removals, has been removed from Ubuntu 11.10.
Yep.
Now, come on. Now, did we not totally call this when they launched their own?
Obviously had to be coming. I mean, you can't.
They have their own software center.
Two that you're going to constantly be supporting on your platform. So, two ways to install your application. That's ridiculous. You focus on one. And why would they be adding in the application software center without?
I totally grok this. I really do. I think it does make sense to focus on one really good user experience. Plus, who doesn't think that Synaptic's not just in the repo anyways? Right.
I mean,
it's not like it's going to be. It's not like it's going to be deleted from the Ubuntu FTP
all you got to do to
service.
install Synaptic is just fire up Synaptic. And, oh no! But no, I mean, it's not like it's that big. It's not like this.
Just fire up the app. Oh wait, no, they're taking out the terminal. That's their next. No, I'm kidding. They're not. Now when they take out the terminal,
then we're probably going to get a little pissed off. But no, this is actually, it makes sense. The only thing I'm going to be a little bummed about is that in Synaptic you can queue up installs and let them install all at once, whereas in the software center you can just keep going and keep adding things to install, but it installs in the background as you go, which can kind of bog things down.
And sometimes it doesn't quite jump around quite right. Yeah, you're right about that.
So that's my only concern, but honestly, it's not that big of a concern, and I rarely hop into Synaptic anymore anyway on Ubuntu, so no big deal.
I just had a great idea.
No.
You know, why can't they do like on-demand package streaming? So like virtual packages that are there that don't, because Colundo or whatever in the chat room is saying Ubuntu needs to move to DVDs. And I kind of like that they're on CDs, honestly, because I have so many old CDRs from back when I was blowing through Linux distros and before they all switched to DVDs that I still have stashes from those days. I'm like, sweet.
With how many installs we do, it would just up
but
the cost.
Wouldn't it seem like you could just have like an aliased entry with like Ubuntu where they have like this integrated software center and things like that? It seemed like you could not install a package until you needed it, and it could just slipstream it in the background.
Oh, you mean like you go to run it and then it installs it?
Yeah. As long as it's not something big, like something small.
Yeah, for small things, why not?
I don't know, maybe, because that could be a way you could save space. That'd be kind of groovy. All right, let's move on, B-Man, because this one's pretty exciting. Now, we've covered a few of these over the 5+ years of the Linux Action Show.
Yeah.
But
that's a lot of years.
Here's a new one. The ND will someday, soon, be running Linux, and it is a little portable, old school, little gamepad device running on Linux.
Yeah.
And it's going to have a 16-bit app store.
Look at those buttons on that thing.
Right?
For those of you watching the little thing, it looks like the button is like one gigantic yellow button. It looks like a dog paw.
It looks like a paw, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's got USB. It's going to run Linux. It's going to be supposedly super fast, and they're focusing on more old school 16-bit style games.
Hold on a second. I just have to read from their website here. It says on their website, their top 3 features are 1, it's a 16-bit app store. 2, it doesn't cost $400. 3, it's faster than the one with 2 screens.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
It looks like it's a toy because it's for kids.
Item number 5 there, it has buttons.
Wow, this guy's speaking your language, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm liking this. Yeah, that's solid. So, I mean, it does look pretty good. My only concern here is, like, you remember the Pandora?
Yep.
And there's been so many really great handhelds that are great for emulation or indie games or porting Linux games over that make it into production, but a very, very limited scale. I mean, the Open Pandora is a great example that never really came to fruition where we can just get a whole bunch of them.
The goals of this one are different.
That's a great looking rig.
The goals of this one are insanely cheap and make it for kids with an app store. Now the Pandora did not have an app store either.
No.
With an app store where a large percentage of the revenues goes towards developers, and
That's cool.
I think really the type of games that it's targeting for are doable by a wider variety of developer skill sets. So I don't think it's impossible. Like they're literally going for like a $20 price point.
That's ridiculous, and I love that.
And they want to just have it like on the shelves of stores. So like, like they show a visual here of it, just on like a whole set of them in plastic wraps. Just go pick them up. Only $20. Runs Linux.
Honestly, it's a great idea. At this point, if they can get that out there for even $50 or less, that's pretty phenomenal. I mean, even if it's not as powerful as a bunch of the other ones.
Now let's move to something else that runs Linux, but is more powerful, B-Man, and that is how do you suppose you say these guys' names? The Akua?
I'm not really sure. I think they're Italian.
Yeah,
they're from Italy, and if you go to their website, there's links available. You'll have to be able to read Italian for the most part, unless you translate it all.
But check this thing out. They got a range of tablets here, but the one we're looking at here is a 1.66 gigahertz Atom processor. It's got a GMA 3150 Intel graphics card.
It's basically a netbook. It's your standard run-of-the-mill
3 USB ports
netbook hardware, except it's just a tablet.
And you can run Ubuntu on it,
right?
Which I would assume would probably mean any.
Because it's a tablet, but that's the thing is it's a piece of dedicated hardware that is a tablet. It's comparable in size to like the first generation iPad, like in thickness. It's not as thin as like the newer ones and all that sort of thing, but it's thin enough to be like, okay, this is a portable tablet, and it handles the screen rotation, runs the current version of Ubuntu.
That's pretty neat.
A nice looking screen.
And again, you can really see where Unity makes some sense on a touch interface. Like this guy here, I personally not a big fan. I think with the mouse and keyboard in Unity all the time, but I could see with a finger.
It works a little bit better.
When I can stick a finger in Unity.
When we reviewed the current version of Ubuntu with Unity, we used my little Lenovo with the touchscreen, and parts of it work really great. That little Unity sidebar works perfectly with your finger. However, the menus and all the little buttons and most of the close buttons and everything for the Windows still are too small for use in a finger really comfortably, but you could kind of get used to it over time.
So, not sure on the price yet.
But here, check out what they did. Go back just like a couple of seconds there, Chris, in the video.
Okay.
What they've got going on here. Yeah, just let it run right there.
Chrome. They got Chrome with Google Maps.
Here he goes. He's going to start resizing the window.
Right.
Watch what happens. Boom. Large resize handlers appear. You could turn on and off to make it easy and finger friendly for resizing your windows.
That's a really slick way to do that.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Have I seen that in any other tablet OS?
No, that's really cool though.
That is really cool.
Yeah, so this looks really, really cool. The prices look decent. It looks about on par with every other tablet in the world. It's like $4.99 and $5.99.
Okay.
But it looks cool. I mean, if you're looking to have a tablet for whatever purpose, this doesn't look too bad.
They call it the Python, Brian, and it can also run Windows 7.
Yeah,
and
there's a Python model and a Perl model.
And a Pascal model, which will run Gingerbread. They're going to have a Pascal for Gingerbread 2.3.
Oh, that's so awesome. Great names.
Pretty neat.
Great names for tablets.
I wonder what the, of course, it's probably all in, not our currency. But I'm curious to see how much, if anybody out there picks one of these up, you got to send us some pics.
We got to find out.
Yeah.
We got to find out how well these are built.
Do you want to cover a special story, Brian, before we move on?
All right, I want to do this just very, very briefly. Oops, and here's the thing. This isn't so much news as a minor editorial. Recently, a popular Linux magazine that I respect greatly, and I want to say this very, very clearly, recently did a kind of like a podcast roundup, right?
Yeah.
And we were on there, of course, and they were very, very, very fair and gave a good podcast roundup. It was a great article.
What magazine was that? You know?
It was Linux format.
Oh, okay.
Great magazine. One I subscribe to. Great, or when I pick up in the stores.
Yeah,
usually.
I think
it's
subscribe
great.
to that too, actually.
It's a great magazine. Great. No qualms with it. However, they picked kind of as their number one podcast, Not Us. And that's fine. That's fine. That's the cool thing about having your magazine. You get to have all sorts of crazy opinions.
Well, we've been first before.
We've been first before. It's no big deal. The problem I have is the podcast they selected was the Linux Outlaws.
I've heard of them.
Now the Linux Outlaws, the reason I have a problem with them.
They don't even have a podcast in the U.S., do they?
No.
I don't even think they have a license to broadcast.
I don't think so. I think it's illegal to listen to them in the U.S. or Canada.
Yeah, because they're not licensed as far as
That's
I know.
just an assumption.
Yeah.
The problem I have with touting them as a number one or even a top 10 Linux podcast is their astounding inaccuracy. Now, we in the Linux Action Show are well known. We mispronounce every word we say.
Kind of all the time.
We cannot spell. We never use proper punctuation.
I don't have a thesaurus, Brian.
You don't have a thesaurus.
No.
No, he never thesaurus possibly. So all the words that come out of our mouth are wrong. Now, we know this, but we try very, very hard to make sure that the facts relating to Linux, the facts relating to the technical side of things are as accurate as possible. We try really, really hard. We do a lot of crowdsourcing to try and make sure that our stories are vetted before we go and talk about them. And the result is, most of the time when you listen to the show, if we give you some facts about Linux, like the Pharonic story, or like any of the other stories, you can be like, okay, that's legit. Even if you disagree with it, it's a legit story. And our commentary and editorials you can disregard, but the facts are usually right on. And if they're wrong, we almost always talk about it in the next episode.
Try to.
Because I find it funny when I'm wrong. Now, the problem
And you are hilarious.
Thank you. All the time. The problem I'm having here is that Linux Outlaws is so constantly inaccurate with representing the technical side of things, both in terms of Linux and other topics, that they misrepresent what the Linux community is.
You're referring to the recent episode they got. They got some attention for an episode they did on Bitcoin.
On Bitcoin.
And it's
astoundingly bad.
It's pretty bad.
Now, they, by their own admission, are not economists or what have you.
And they're not from the U.S., so when they were talking about like the U.S. economy and stuff like that, and they got like major things like Fort Knox and Federal Reserve things confused.
Yeah, basically they thought that the Fort Knox was the Federal Reserve. They got everything
I guess
just
that's lack of
astoundingly
research.
Wrong. That's kind of what it is, and it would not be a problem. Like, honestly, if the Linux Outlaw boys just simply went out and had a Bitcoin episode and got a whole bunch of Bitcoin stuff wrong, that would be funny, and I would make fun of them.
That'd be funny.
However, the problem is this is just yet another example of the Linux Outlaws guys being universally wrong. They're just wrong so often, it's painful. Now, I don't listen to their show that often. The reason I don't listen to their show that often is because it is god-awful. Now, if you... Now,
I don't know. Everybody has their own approach, and every show appeals to a different...
No! Heavens, no! God, no! God, no! Yeah, here's the thing. I'm going to tell everyone listening to the show, if you want to go listen to their latest episode, go listen to their... I'm not even going to give you their link, because you can just search for it. Listen to their Bitcoin episode. Listen to that one, because that's the one we're talking about.
All right.
And I have no qualms with doing that. No qualms with sending them traffic, because you know why? Because we already won. We already won. These guys are just kind of some follow-up pups. They made a name for themselves early on because they disliked me. That's where they got most of their traffic.
So they got some bad blood here.
So
we got some bad blood going on.
So feel free, go and listen. It's the quality is not good. The inaccuracies are so bad, and it worries me that anybody would put them up and say, "Hey, here's a great show you can go and listen to." Hey, new
Are
Linux
you worried
users,
about
go
new
check
people
this
getting
out.
exposed and finding that, and then like, geez, this is a lot of bad information.
This is Linux, and or thinking what Linux Outlaws guys say is true all the time, and then thinking, oh gosh, and then leaving Linux. Because honestly, if the only experience I had with Linux was Linux Outlaws, I would run away screaming and run Windows XP for the rest of my life.
Ooh.
That is how
in
bad it is.
In classic theme, right?
Right. Well, in classic theme. Yeah, of course. Of course.
Maybe
Absolutely.
window blinds or right? So window blinds.
Yeah, window blinds.
Theming.
The Stardock guys.
Yeah.
The theming. Yeah.
I would just say, I know from doing as much as we do for all of our shows, research is a really, really, it's a lot of work. And
it's a lot of work.
I completely understand that when podcasters can get busy, how they will.
Quality can slip.
They can skip on the research part of it.
Totally understandable. And honestly, we have had shows. We've been going for over 5 years now. We've had shows where we phoned it in. And you know when we phoned it in. You can tell. And we don't do it often. But every now and then you're like, Brian and Chris did not prepare well for this show. And the thing is, we usually say so. We're like, yep, so this is a show, I guess.
Yeah, here we go. Let's do this thing.
Let's go see what's on Slashdot so we have something to talk about.
I don't think we've ever actually been that bad.
We've never been that bad. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so I get it. If they have simply had an episode or two where maybe they just didn't research things a little bit, it wouldn't be that bad. But typically it's this bad. Feel free to go listen to them. I don't care if you boost their numbers. It does not matter to me. It does not matter to me because it is a complete and utter joke. It should be understood in order to help Linux, in order to help us as a community, and not just my show. I don't need people to go, I don't like Linux Outlaws, therefore I gotta listen to Linux Action Show. There are great shows. There are shows out there that are not us, that are quality, that are factual, that are informative.
Sure.
Listen to those. Listen to us. Listen to any of them, but not these guys. Not these guys. Come on. And that's all I wanted to say.
There you go.
I don't want to
can see
rail
where
on them
you're
for too
going.
long, but it worries
bothers me
that
you don't want a bad name for Linux podcasting.
I don't want to get lumped in with them.
You don't want a bad name for Linux podcasting to get out there.
I don't want people to go, hey, let's talk about Linux podcasts.
I'll tell you what.
Here's an article. First thing in the article is Linux Outlaws. Someone goes, oh, well, I'm going to listen to these in order. Goes and listens to Linux Outlaws. They never even get to Linux Action Show because immediately their head explodes with anger and inaccuracies.
I'll tell you, B-Man, it goes like this. When you have a show that can go big, like we'll probably get a lot of traffic for this WebOS episode.
Sure.
And they'll get a lot of traffic for their Bitcoin episode. That's the time as a podcaster you want to double down and you want to really make sure you want to
get it right.
You're getting your quality control in this episode because this is the one that this is your example episode now that people will follow as this is what these guys produce. And if you are really inaccurate, that will set an impression. And it's something to keep in mind because we are, as a Linux podcasting area, it's a niche. It's a niche, and we want people to always have good experiences.
Absolutely.
So something to keep in mind.
And if you are out there and you're like, man, is Linux Action Show the only bastion of accuracy and decent quality? No, there are some great stuff. We've recommended before, like This Week in Linux guy. Good dude. He gets his stuff. Typically, it's right. Typically, it's
you know who has us
researched.
beat on years is those Linux Link Tech guys.
Linux Link Tech Show guys. They've been going for a long time, and when they get things wrong, they fess up to it. And they have enough of the guys sitting around at once
get it. They'll catch it.
that one of them definitely knows the truth, and so they correct each other, and it's good. And it's a totally different show than ours. There's great shows out there. Just don't go over to these Linux Outlaw guys. They don't know what's going on. They don't properly represent the Linux community. I would prefer to make it known that they are the obvious joke. They are the obvious ones that are inaccurate. They should be synonymous. Like, oh man, like if I get something wrong, I would like the community to go, wow, Brian, you really Linux outlawed that one. You know what I mean? I would like that to be the way to go.
You really pulled a Linux Outlaw.
Oh man. Yeah, exactly. Like exactly.
Man, Brian.
So anyway, that's all I had to say.
All right.
There's a lot more interesting stuff I want to talk about. The WebOS stuff is really exciting to me. So let's jump onto that. Enough of the negativity.
All right,
no more of that.
Well, that's all the news for this week.
Android is great. iOS, not necessarily our favorite. Mamo and Migo. Exciting and interesting, but obviously not necessarily with a huge future on phones that we're excited about. I know the N9's coming, but whatnot. But really, it's limited.
It does appear to be a dead road.
It's limited. Dead end. Symbian, well, that's just dead. Windows Phone 7, we're obviously not going to be going down that route. So where does a good Linux-loving guy go?
I went to this bottle of beer, Brian. That's where I went.
That's where you went? Does that help? Well,
a little bit.
There is another OS, and it just doesn't get enough coverage, in my opinion, especially with as much that's going on right now, and that is WebOS from HP, previously Palm. Obviously, everyone knows about it, and if you don't, where have you been?
You're silly.
It's mostly a web-based OS. I mean, in that it's using web technologies. It's not a cloud-based OS by any means, but the predominant development environment for building WebOS applications is very, JavaScript, HTML5 sort of stuff. Right. That doesn't mean you have applications that are necessarily, all that slow or clunky or anything, because the web engine that's powering this, the interpreters, the JavaScript engine is nice and fast. So that is what WebOS is. And of course, we've had a couple of WebOS devices already.
We've had the Pre's.
All from the Pre side of things. And, the hardware's been a bit iffy. So a lot of people have, kind of given it not necessarily the highest marks. However,
I will say this: when I first saw WebOS, I said that's a tablet OS.
It does. It looks like a tablet OS, and now that we have a WebOS tablet, and we've got new WebOS phones that are going to be coming down the line, we've got a new version of WebOS. It's time to take.
We've also heard that HP is interested in putting WebOS on multiple
and licensing it,
and licensing it and putting it in multiple form factors, possibly netbooks. They had a slide with a WebOS netbook on it. Like you said, they confirmed they are looking to license WebOS to other vendors. This is a true top-to-bottom Linux-based OS. And in fact, I gotta say, B-Man, I wasn't sure as just a consumer, is this something I want to jump into? Is it really Linuxy? Like Android is like, oh, this is Linux, it's Android,
no, or is it? It's Linux.
It really is. And here's if you're watching the video version behind us right now, we have a diagram of the I guess you call it stack of WebOS.
Yeah,
And it starts at the bottom of the
this is
Linux
basically
kernel.
the framework stack.
And then it's just drivers and then user land environment, not some VM where it hides the under all Linux OS.
Right.
It really is truly Linux.
And here's the great part. Now, if you've been involved, and we actually mentioned this, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but if you've been involved at all on the Android side of things, you probably played around with your own custom ROMs.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of communities that are building, custom ROMs for Android. That gets a little iffy. It gets a little iffy because the carriers aren't huge on you doing it.
Right.
Google's not even that big on you doing it. It's not that big of. It's not just not something they want. However, HP is cool with you monkeying around. They like it.
Yeah, they really do.
In fact, they fully embrace it. Over on their developer support forums, people will put in patches for the Linux kernel that's running the WebOS. You're like, you know what? This is going to be cool. It's going to make things faster. Users will submit patches, and HP's like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
They not only will they encourage people to do that, to play with it, for developers to actually put that on their own devices, they will actually, in many cases, integrate that back into their next major OS release. So they're kind of doing a nice open source collaborative thing with their developers.
They're embracing the homebrew scene.
Yes.
And the other thing that they're doing, we'll have a link in the show notes, is you can go right over to their website, and they're making the SDK download of WebOS easy. You don't even need an account anymore. As of a few days ago, you had to have an account, but WebOS 3.0 is officially out as of really recent, and you can go get this without even signing up. If you use the link in the show notes, you can download it, and it downloads as a VirtualBox image, and within 15 minutes, you can run WebOS, just like B-Man we have running here.
And seriously, installing it is mega easy. Now, before we dive in, I want to call this out.
All right.
If you've ever tried to install the emulators and the simulation tools,
like for Android,
for Android or iPhone or anything, it's a pain in the butt. Even with Maemo, it's really relatively difficult. It's not that easy to just a couple of clicks to set up Migo or Maemo. It can be really involved.
This was ridiculously easy.
Super easy. They even have a repo where you just throw in the repo, apt-get that sucker, and
check it
boom.
out. Yeah, I'll have that.
You are done.
I have a link to that in the show notes for Ubuntu users. Literally, they have...
It's a couple of step process. And you can just copy and paste a couple lines to add your repo, install it.
Boom.
You're done. You are done. And you can run the full WebOS 3. You got the full dev tools. You can play around with it, and you can go nuts, which is really nice. And it's, again, I want to reiterate on this. It's free to do. It does not cost you anything.
It doesn't cost $100.
On the iPhone side of things, it costs you like $100.
Yeah.
On Android, it's free, but takes you like 8 years to set up. It is a major mondo pain in the butt. Anyway, so let's dive into WebOS, because this is that so far getting set up to the point where you can play with the SDK and the emulator is super easy.
So what I have here, if you're watching the video version, if you're not, I'll just kind of walk you guys through. This is your basic WebOS tablet experience, and it's pretty vanilla. I wanted to keep it that way.
Yeah.
And it comes basically with a UI to it that probably within the first 10 seconds of even seeing it, I completely understood how to operate it.
It's super straightforward.
Including, even though never really experiencing this card setup for, like here, if you're watching the video version, I have various cards that represent the different operating windows that I could switch between, and they're live. They have live previews and updates, and it's just if you can imagine how you'd operate this in a touch environment, it's really nice to use.
Yeah.
And it's a simple swipe up to close an application, and I close it, which I really kind of get some satisfaction out of.
You got to kind of almost think about it, of holding it in your hand and thinking, I've got a bunch of playing cards in my hand, and I get rid of them. I deal them out. So you just go slide, slide, and the cards are gone. Out of your hand.
The card playing cards thing is exactly where my mind went. It's exactly how I grokked it immediately. I plugged in my Facebook credentials. Bam! Automatically it populated their online gallery with my Facebook photos. Really pretty slick, dude. I mean,
super
here
slick.
I am drinking a beer. That's weird. That doesn't sound like me at all. But
crazy.
And just like you can double tap on stuff and you can drag images around, it's all with the mouse in this emulator.
Yeah.
So you can really get a feel, what's it going to be like to run this operating system? What's this operating system's applications like? How does my favorite web page render in this WebOS web browser? You can really get a feel for all that stuff for no money up front. So before you even walk out and buy a device, you can find out what it's like to dev for. You can find out what it's like to use for a little while. I mean, this is brilliant.
It's great. They've done a great job. And the extra nice part is how nice it runs in the emulator.
Yeah.
It's smooth as silk. The graphics are great. It's not stuttery. It's not low frame rate like you'd get with, honestly, like the Android. The Android emulator is really slow. You need a really big rig to
Sometimes
emulate the
I
Android
feel
side
like
of
this thing will slow down a little bit, like in the terms of a virtual machine will do, but I never feel like it's the operating system slowing down either.
No.
Like here's an example now, just since we've been talking, I've got 1, 2, 3 programs running. I can just switch between them. I got my always on instant messenger, which, by the way, the integration with Skype in WebOS is pervasive throughout. I mean, you add it as a chat account, and now you can chat with your Skype buddies. It will also connect them with your contacts, so you can, from the dialer, instead of making a phone call, you could make a Skype call if you want.
Which is, honestly, so like on my N900, that's what I've got there. And that's one of the things that's keeping me from upgrading to any other phone is that my N900, I use that so much because it's so much cheaper just to have a data plan and use Skype.
Yeah, well, and Skype, if you are like over Wi-Fi, sounds better than a regular phone call.
Exactly.
And if you're calling somebody who's on Skype, they appreciate a Skype call versus a phone call as well.
Yes.
So you can call, like, we'll work in teams of people where they'll all be on Skype. And they hate it when you call their phone because, dude, I'm on Skype. I got my headset on. I'm typing. Call me on Skype.
It takes me out of it if you call me on my phone.
Yeah. So totally thrilled with this. Now, it ships by default with a web browser, email, calendar, chat, and photos. All of those things on that main, like, I guess, dock experience, you could call it. All of these integrate with some other service and automatically out of the box sync. It's really, really nice. So you can, I felt like I had all of my accounts configured. I had all of my data into WebOS
Super easy.
within 10 minutes of running it.
Super easy.
As I was just coming across things.
Yeah.
So
it's mega easy to get used to. It looks really, really slick. It's very customizable.
What's the developer tool that you featured like in an old Coding with Brian episode?
Oh man, why am I Aries?
Aries. So that's
Aries.
a whole.
So there's multiple ways to develop applications for WebOS.
I'll go see if I can find that.
Yeah, search for
WebOS
Aries. I believe that'll bring it right up.
Okay.
Yeah, Project Aries.
Project Aries.
So great. Right there. Get a screenshot of that guy up. So this is a web-based Webbased IDE. So now they've got they've got a brand new kind of framework for building WebOS applications that you can utilize. That's just kind of a little bit more beefed up, a little bit more fancy. The previous framework that they had is still going to be usable, still going to be there for everybody. You can still use
drag and
Eclipse
drop
with
build
some of
apps.
the plugins to build cool WebOS applications. But this is, it's a nice rapid application development, web-based development tool for building WebOS applications.
And it's tied in too, so once you develop the application, you develop all in there, drag, drop, put the code in, and then they actually have a publish to the Palm store or to the WebOS store
So easy.
From the thing.
So freaking easy.
It seems like a guy like me could go in there and make like a little Jupyter broadcasting app.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically though, you still got to learn JavaScript. The primary development language in WebOS is JavaScript. So you've still got to learn JavaScript. You still got to learn the various APIs for how to handle networking connections. You still got to do all the logic yourself. But this is a nice visual
IDE. But this gets you off the ground with a nice visual IDE just immediately as soon as you load a web page.
You know what would be really nice? It'd be really nice if possibly Illumination Software Creator supported WebOS.
I was going to ask you, have you looked into doing that? And has that been challenging making, really, because we could talk about it from a making stuff for WebOS standpoint.
Yes, so the next version of Illumination Software Creator, we have not announced this officially yet, but it is going to be supporting WebOS.
And how has it been doing that?
Piece of cake.
Really?
So now here's the thing. So if you develop for anything, so like let's say Android.
Yeah.
You've got to write your Java code.
Yeah.
You've got to write your XML files that lay out your UI and everything else. You then have to build it into an APK. You have to sign it, and then you can load it up. It's so much easier on WebOS just because most of what you're doing is really JavaScript files.
Oh, right.
It's
so Illumination needs to be able to just output JavaScript
easier.
files.
Basically, I mean, it outputs a few other things, but yeah. So we've already built the full WebOS support. It's done and it's ready to go with the next release already. And it took us, in order to support WebOS with everything that Illumination currently has, it took us about a week and a half to add full WebOS support. And it's not like hackneyed support. It's full.
Really?
Good-looking WebOS support, and it was super easy. And that's not because I'm super smart or anything. That's really just because developing for WebOS is really, really simple. And so I was really impressed with all of that. And going from, say, building it in Illumination or building it in Project Aries or building it in any of the other tools that you're going to build your applications in to shipping it into the App Store is a piece of cake. And they take it a step further. If you are a guy who's putting out a couple of apps on the App Store, getting WebOS running hardware is cheaper.
Oh, you get a discount.
that you get a discount.
Yeah, they're
And
giving
it's
some love to the devs.
It's a fairly significant discount too. They have a thing, I can't remember what it was. It's like if you have like 3 or 4 apps in the App Store, and it doesn't have to be much. Like if you make a Jupiter Broadcasting app, and
nice.
you make like a little game that probably took 10 minutes to make, like maybe one where you just throw birds at pigs or something like that. It doesn't take any time at all, and it's really stupid.
Actually, the chat room was saying there's an Easter egg in the Angry Birds version for WebOS.
Yeah. But if you do all that, you get really significant discounts, like on the HP tablet.
Dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's this kind of thing that makes you, as a developer, say, "Wow,
I feel like
loved.
you respect me."
Yeah, I feel loved. Whereas if you go over to Apple, their review process, basically it treats you like a criminal before you even submit your application. Heaven forbid, your application has 1 or 2 issues with it, and it may not even be issues. Apple just may not like the way your application feels, and they treat you like you're bad. Over on the Android side of things, you're just kind of, I don't know. It's a different sort of environment.
Dog v dog. It's like every man for himself. It's
like
an open party.
You're in the Old West, and you are assumed by the users to be a criminal. Like, there's so many apps out there for Android now that are stealing some data and whatnot.
I just heard about an app that's a process suspender, where it will make your Android system appear like that app isn't installed, and you can suspend multiple apps for free, but you can only recover 3 of them back to normal state unless you pay.
No way.
So it basically holds those apps for hostage.
That's terrible.
And if you uninstall the app, it doesn't release them.
That's terrible.
So yeah, there's people out there that are worried about that.
People assume that the developers are the bad guys. Whereas
But
on
how
WebOS,
can- yeah.
WebOS is different. HP is like, wow, developers, please come, toy with our kernel, toy with our development framework, toy with everything.
You're gonna get people
build
passionate.
apps for it. Here, we're gonna give you cheaper hardware. Please take it. It's awesome.
Discounts are good.
And it feels so good.
I will say from the outside, as a non-developer, but just kind of doing my research
And they do have a nice
how they
store.
do it, I see nods constantly to developers, like inside jokes, like we just covered it on the pre-show, but there is a code you can put into the WebOS throughout it now has this just type meme, and you just type and it searches, emails, bookmarks, contacts, everything at once.
Everything, yeah.
And if you put in a code into this just type box, you unlock a developer mode. And of course, the code is a little nod to developers because it's geeky.
It's the Capcom code.
Yeah.
It's the up, down, left, right, BA, select, start stuff. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a nice
that's
little
how
nod.
you turn on the developer mode.
Yeah.
Like, that's how you get basically root access.
Yeah.
That's like, you do that with the Capcom code.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You know what? You know who's not doing that? Apple.
Yeah.
Or Google.
Yeah.
Or any of the other people. I mean, it's nerdy yet usable. It's like you start using WebOS. It's easy to use for anyone. Anyone could obviously figure this out.
It was no problem.
More so than any of the other platforms.
Way more.
It's the most approachable. But yet, if you're willing to just type in the Capcom code, you get so much more nerdiness than the other platforms.
It uses this combination of real-world reference points that you can immediately wrap your brain around with in a combination that it really feels like it's an organic experience, that you would do that when you're touching. And I want to give props to the fact that more and more apps are making their way out.
Wait a minute, Chris.
Okay.
We screwed up.
What?
We said Capcom code.
Yeah?
It's the Konami code.
Oh, it is the Konami code, isn't it?
Now, here's an example, ladies and gentlemen, of when the Linux Action Show is wrong. Before it's even over,
we get it
corrected.
And it is the Konami code. We have the Linux Action Show army in our chat room who is immediately providing us with accurate information. So we don't even have to be smart. They're smart, right? That's great.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the Linux Action Show army, for making sure we are 100% accurate.
I want to talk about
90% of the time.
WebOS's biggest problem, and a problem that I already see being chipped away at. It needs more, but it's being chipped away at, and that is applications, right? I mean, come on. There's just a lot of apps that are missing, but
there are a lot of apps that are missing.
But the ones that are making it are good. Like, I got a link in here about a WordPress app, and this one's a great one because there's a video in the show notes. Go check this out.
It's really
because
nice.
You are going to love the way WebOS handles notifications.
It's really nice.
It is great. It's got this drop-down menu with this this isn't in your face. It's not obnoxious. It's just there's a spot. There's this area. It's very much like the Ubuntu Me menu. You go up there. There's all the information you need to know about. It's contextually aware of what you're doing, so it can be aware of the application you're on. I mean, it's so nice, and the WordPress guys have really put together just a bang-up application that really shows how beautiful WebOS applications can be when people put a little of their stink behind it.
And here's what's messed up. So I have the simulator installed at home with the WordPress little application going. It is much nicer to administer and write for my blog in WebOS through an emulator on my desktop than it is to go to my standard WordPress website and my admin panel and do it there directly. It is nicer. That's messed up. I mean, that's good messed up for WebOS. But I mean, that just shows you something. Like the Facebook application that's built in is really nice.
Built by HP, not by... There's a lot of people online saying that Facebook was screwing Apple and they were making a WebOS Facebook edition before they made one for HP.
No,
HP's guys made this and they did a great job.
It looks nice. It's pleasing to the eye. It gives you all the functionality you want. It gets rid of all the clutter.
It's Facebook without all the crap.
It's actually phenomenal.
Yeah.
And
you can dip in and just use it as much as you want, like with the Facebook integration. Like if you want to just maybe sync down your photos or you want to just get contact information. Because honestly, a lot of people, and I apologize if you're one of the people out there that do this, but a lot of people, I think, mistakenly put their phone number up on Facebook.
Yeah, they should not do that.
They should not do that.
Don't do that.
But if you do that, WebOS will go scrape your Facebook account and it will go automatically update your contacts when people update their phone number.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if your friends are dumb enough to do that, you get the benefits.
Well,
so
it also will do Twitter and like LinkedIn, and you can also add other things. They offer that area is extensible, and then when you're in there, it's like, here's the services you can use. In fact, maybe I can go find it. But here's the services you can use. Would you like to add more from our store? Because you never know, there could be more.
There are. Yeah. So, I mean, that is really the big issue, though, is applications.
It is. But they're working on it.
And mostly, honestly, games. Because the applications that are available right now, if for communications, for social networking, for instant messaging, for blogging, for web browsing, for doing all this sort of thing, it's available. I mean, they even have like a nice, you can tie it into your LinkedIn account.
Your Dropbox account.
Dropbox,
what? I got to play with that for a minute. I got to see what that does.
Everything you probably want is already there. But not a lot of great games. There are some great games, and there is a native SDK that allows people to write C code to have nice GPU acceleration to build quality games.
Wow.
However,
it will sync with your Dropbox documents folder.
Yeah.
Out of the gate.
Yeah.
That is so nice.
I know. This is what I'm saying.
Your phone or your tablet out of the box will sync with a documents directory in Dropbox.
Out of the box. It's like the little nerd touches. It's like it works great as a phone for anybody. But then if you're a nerd, here's all the little things that are just maybe one or two clicks deep where you can turn on all the nerd stuff. And it's great.
And it's gorgeous at the same time. Like, it's not like deceivingly hard to use.
It's not like Android where everything looks kind of ugly. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I mean, let's be honest. Android does look a little ugly by default.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a lot of work. You can pretty up Android a lot, but it does look a little ugly. And honestly, like, I'm not a huge fan of the Migo look and feel either. It's not totally my thing. WebOS, on the other hand, looks really nice. Yeah. It just looks really, really nice.
The emulator comes with a nice fake number. That's pretty funny.
I really like this. Now, my only problem is, because honestly, the fact that there's not a huge quantity of, say, games and commercial software in the App Store is not a huge deal breaker for me, because really, that's the kind of stuff I want to sell anyway. So I'm going to build those apps and I'm going to get them out there.
That's a good point.
My biggest concerns are twofold. One is the total user base. I would hate to invest in WebOS, get super psyched about WebOS, and then have it go away like Mamo, like so many, or like Windows Mobile, or all the other web mobile platforms.
Maybe that's why they're doing the licensing thing. Maybe they think we can't. Maybe they feel like it's a numbers game. They can't win with just handsets. But if we go netbook, if we go printer, if we go tablet, if we go phone, we go desktop even.
Yeah.
Maybe by then.
That's what I'm thinking.
I mean, look at HP's approach. HP here is, you got an open platform.
Yep.
They're being cool with developers.
Yeah, and the apps built for it most of the time are going to run exactly the same on all the different form
So
factors.
they are the antithesis of Apple in that regard, except when it comes to their general approach of we make the hardware and we make the software.
Right.
And HP has years of making hardware and making software.
Right.
HP has done this for a very long time.
Yeah, they're not new. Yeah.
If there is anyone with a completely integrated, could you name, I mean, I'm serious, Brian, could you name another vendor in the market who could match Apple in that regard right now? I mean, Dell could do it, but Dell doesn't have the software OS building experience.
And honestly, Dell doesn't have the mobile hardware experience really.
Right.
I mean, if you think about it,
HP's been making iPads. They've been making mobile devices for years.
Really, I mean, even when Microsoft first rolled out Windows CE, the first people that were there was HP making hardware, and their hardware was great. It was really great mobile hardware.
Yeah, and their weapon of choice right now, Brian, they're arming all of this approach with is WebOS.
Yeah. So if there is any chance that an OS is going to succeed, it's in the hands of HP.
I honestly, it's super slick. This is a 3.0. It is nice as hell. It looks great. It runs great. The emulator is easy to get, so you can try it for yourself. They've got the integrated approach. They've got a passion. They're the guy running the shop over there has already sent out a memo saying, "Yeah, folks, we know the TouchPad got some negative reviews, but look, you know what he pointed out? You know what he said? They effing love WebOS. Look what they're saying about WebOS. He was like, the hardware's getting some bad knocks, but look what they're saying about WebOS. And all the things they want improved, we already have on our roadmap to improve." I mean, this is exactly what you want to hear.
And here's another thing that makes me feel more comfortable.
Really excited.
We've reviewed a lot of HP hardware over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, the HP netbooks, the HP Media Vault Linux servers, and with the HP Media Vault Linux server, the
HP Linux desktops.
HP sent us one out. Yeah, we've reviewed HP Linux desktops. HP loves Linux.
They've always been really cool with us.
They've been really cool with us.
And remember when the Media Vault review, after our review, you had a follow-up phone call with them.
I had multiple follow-up phone calls with them where literally they got me on the phone call in a conference, just me, with their project manager of HP on the server side, their project manager that oversaw the Media Vault servers.
That's awesome.
And they sat on with me and they're like, "What did you like? And what did you dislike?" And I told them, and they're like, "Oh, that's interesting." And then we talked for a while and they were open and honest with me about what they were feeling their roadmap
and why they might have done this or that.
It was
and they totally took the feedback in, which is really cool.
They did. And it's awesome to see. So I'm extraordinarily hopeful about that. The other flip side of things is the apps and games. Will we see a lot of games come through? At this point, I don't know that it matters.
You think
so much.
Weren't you saying, was it a couple episodes ago, you think you're going to see the Dalvik emulator where you can run Android apps on WebOS potentially?
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. But even then, let's say like the Facebook application of WebOS, it blows anything on Android or iOS away.
It does.
So why do you even want it? The only reason that you'd want Dalvik to be able to run Android applications is for Android games and a couple of niche tools.
I'm waiting for the vendor to make the WebOS version kind of a thing. Yeah.
Right. But for the most part, for using this as a platform, this is going to work great right out of the gate. So that's my general thinking. Right now, this is the best, most well-refined mobile platform I've seen. It is phenomenal. I love it.
Yeah, I really do.
And I'm not a huge... You guys know me. I'm not really big on web technologies. Like people use the word web technologies or web 2.0 or cloud computing, and I start to get... In fact, I bristle up a little bit, and I'm like, I don't know.
I'm sure there's an episode where we're like, WebOS?
Really? It's honestly, WebOS is a bad name.
Yeah.
I still think WebOS is a bad name.
I guess it's supposed to imply the underlying technology?
That's exactly what it is. But it may be a bad name, but it's the best system there is. And they've done a great job with their design. I have nothing bad to say about WebOS except give me better hardware.
More apps, better hardware, or let me load it on the hardware I want.
Right. No, here's the thing, though. Think about it like this. If you closed all the app stores right now, iPhone, Android, everything, and you have to take the platform for what it is out of the box, no apps.
Oh, WebOS,
you choose WebOS.
Hands down.
Even if you keep the apps, but don't add any new ones, so you can't have any new WebOS apps.
Not even a second needed for decision.
Right.
It is without question.
It is the way to go.
Look at this. I just want to, before we wrap, I want to show their mail client. Best mail client I've found, and unfortunately, in this view, you guys don't see it with multiple accounts. Super slick at handling multiple accounts.
Is great.
You can collapse them and not even see them. But it is a great mail client, and it formats HTML email really well. The whole thing is just a pleasure to use, and the way it works, if you've used some of the apps on iOS or Android, you're familiar with some of the things you do here. But it's like it took the best elements of those in a mail program and put them all in one. I mean, this mail program
is great.
Is so good. I kind of want an HP tablet just so I can read my email on it.
Right.
If I could afford to do that, I probably would.
It's messed up. I mean, it's kind of like what I was saying before about the WordPress. The WordPress application is so significantly better than any other WordPress-based experience I've ever had that I'm just like, well, what? I almost need a tablet running this just to blog, just to write on my stupid blog. I want this. I find myself loading up the simulator just to use these apps on my desktop because they're so
This is
good.
neat. So check this out, Brian. Since we've been talking, I went ahead and told it to sync my calendar from Jupiter Broadcasting, and it's already started adding it to the calendar before I've even closed the calendar application. It's starting to add events. So it's not like it's just you add the service in the background, the calendar starts populating while it's running.
Yeah.
And before we wrap, the last thing I want to touch on is the multitasking. Super great. Yeah. This card metaphor system works. Things keep running in the background. It's true multitasking. It's real multitasking. It's videos keep, well, at least with some multimedia, music, videos, they keep running in this cards. As I scroll through, you actually see video playing as you're scrolling through the cards. I mean, it works great. I honestly, in 5 years, this could be a desktop killer.
It could, couldn't it?
It's really good.
Now, see, I go back and forth because I love the traditional desktop metaphor for my desktops. I really do.
It's too touchy-centric now.
It's too touchy-centric now, but...
These apps, though, I want these apps.
For desktop and for handhelds, absolutely. There's no question that this is the best design. Apple gets a lot of credit for having the best design. Not even close. We're talking... WebOS makes iOS, makes iPhone and iPad operating system look like it was made in like 1998. It makes them look old, busted, clunky, slow, non-multitasking. It makes them look like they just weren't even thinking about the future.
I agree.
This is great. So I got to give a major tip of the hat to everyone working on WebOS. Great job.
Last video demonstration before we move on. I know the audio listeners probably getting old at this, but one thing I want to show you the way it handles multitasking, because I can see how you might think this gets out of hand. But so here is like my calendar. If I swipe over any application that's launched multiple windows, it groups them all into this bundle.
Yeah.
And then you just pick the one you want from that bundle, and it brings that one to the front.
Right.
It is the perfect solution to multitasking in a touch interface.
Simple, logical, but not restricting your power in any way. That's the thing. You know, everyone talks about how, let's say, like on an iPad, it's like, well, you want to keep it simple, one application at a time, right? Let's keep it simple. But they went a step too far with the iPad. They made it so you're only really running one app at a time. You're not really grouping your apps together. You can't have multi-window apps. There's so many things that restrict both the power of the developers and the users.
Is nuts.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
Whereas WebOS, you're like, you know what? Let's not restrict people in any way.
No.
Let's just make it so obviously simple that everyone can do whatever they want and it'll work great. And that's WebOS. I'm super excited.
Yep.
Am I going to be switching over to a WebOS phone? Honestly, probably. I don't know how I can resist switching over to a WebOS phone.
I think I'm going to have to wait for the right hardware, but when the right hardware lands, it's kind of a slam dunk. As long as the apps keep going.
The next round of phones is what I'm waiting for.
Yep.
The next rounds of phones that come out, I'll pick whatever one is the best.
I agree.
I'll make that my phone because this is it. It's not Memo for me anymore because Memo is a dead platform. It's not Migo for me because honestly, even Migo is not really a living platform anymore. I mean, it's alive. It's getting development.
See, right?
I know.
We'll see.
But it's very uncertain. No one's really committed.
Agree.
Nokia has phones shipping, but not really. It's limited. And
no future plans to ship more.
But HP is like, not only do we have plans, we have huge plans
and
for the SDK,
you
for the
gotta
OS,
figure
for everything.
As a last thing to just think about when you're making your decisions here about WebOS is, boy, this has got to piss Microsoft off. You know, because HP was for the longest time Windows tablets, Windows iPads, Windows all this stuff. And then they come along, especially when they're doing this Windows Phone 7 stuff, they come along and they're like, boom, we're going Linux. You know, and
they're going Linux and they're doing it better than anyone.
Yep.
Awesome. This is super exciting to me. I love this system. To me, this system is more Linux than Android is.
Oh,
because
of course.
It's great. To me, this is the right way to go. I can't say anything bad about it.
Yeah.
If I got to give it a grade, it's an A+.
Yeah.
Hardware is a B-. But
we haven't. Yeah, I'll reserve. I want to get our hands on it, but the reviews are kind of lukewarm.
The reviews are lukewarm on the hardware.
You never know.
But I'm wondering if the OS is enough for me to overlook that.
It could be
because I look at it and like the iPad. iPad is a nice piece of hardware, but the OS is so
Exactly.
limiting
It's the reverse.
that it makes me angry.
Yep.
I'm wondering if I get a piece of kit that's maybe not 100%
But the
top-notch,
software.
but that's running this, that I can use that email client, that WordPress client, that I can have all the multitasking, instant messaging always on rocking. I'm wondering if that's not going to make up for it.
I know it, man.
Yeah.
So we'd love to hear what you think. Leave us a comment, shoot us a tweet, whatever you want to do.
Especially if you've got WebOS devices.
If you got a touchpad, let us
know.
definitely
Let us know how it's going.
Yeah, I want to hear that. Okay, B-Man. Well, I think that's our in-depth look at WebOS 3.0.
Boom. And that brings us to the end of this wild and wacky episode of the Linux Action Show. Thanks again for tuning in. And thanks again for tuning in for the last 5+ years.
Definitely.
If you want to follow us, you can do so over Twitter. Brian Lunduk, is this me? Chris LAS, is that him? You can go over to JupiterColony.com.
That's a forum.
Jupiter Broadcasting website.
Yep.
It's awesome.
And
we love all of it.
10 a.m., jblive.tv. We're doing this S live, and you can join us.
All the time. Next week, not next week.
Oh, right. Oh,
next
man.
Week. Next week, we'll be doing it over on Thursday.
Yep.
Again, we'll be, if you follow us on Twitter or Facebook, we'll tweet out the times. But it's summertime. Doing a little traveling.
Yeah.
Doing some family
Going
stuff.
down to
Gonna be
California.
Gonna be barbecuing a little bit.
Yeah.
Gonna go outside, enjoy the sunshine.
Yeah.
So sometimes Sunday mornings may shake up a little bit. But for the most part, Sunday mornings at 10 a.m.
Well, and if you tune in on Thursday, you can probably just stick around and watch Jupiter Night. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Jupiter
why would
Night's
you?
this next week.
They got the new Jupiter Night. You can tune in, just relax the whole
Hey,
evening.
can I say something, Chris?
Yeah.
Good damn show.
Yeah, right? I like it.
Good nerdy show. Anyway, that's all we got for this week. Thank you for tuning in. Go forth and play with things. It'll be awesome.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. And we'll see you right back on the live stream on Thursday, released on Sunday.
Hey, Chris, I already said all of that.
I know, but I want to wrap it up real nice in a button.
No.
In a button.
No. Hey, Chris.
It's like the last thing.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
I'm ready. Man, I'm ready. Oh, you're making good noises that I like. Those are the noises I like.
They're the news noises,
Brian, you
Brian.
rock and roll. Are we recording?
Well, let's do the news.
Here's the problem. The internet didn't distract me, but I distracted myself with food. Chris mentioned an alder plank. I'm done for.